Expedition Erebus by Benedict Baldwin. Prologue. The crate beneath the ice. The ice groaned beneath them, a slow, stretching sound, like old bones waking from a long sleep. Cradles in sight, 20 meters north, submerged beneath that ridge, marking GPS now. Copy. Ice layers thinner than expected. Be cautious. Watch the current. 3 divers in black neoprene suits crawled across the wind-polished ice, their packs pulsing with light from attached signal beacons. Beneath them, buried under a translucent blue layer, something metal shimmered in the sonar feedback. Not a natural deposit. Not wreckage. A box. No rust. No visible seams. Just a stamped brass plate. HMS Erebus, 1848. This isn't from the Terror site. This is further north than any charted debris. The wind shifted, slicing down from the Arctic plateau like a blade. The temperature dropped 4 degrees in minutes. Still, the divers knelt and began scraping at the ice with thermal rods. Soon, a rectangular shape emerged, encased in frost, but unmistakably man-made. It looked placed, as if someone buried it after the ship had gone down. They found no hinges, no lock, no means of opening. But the top was grooved, like a lid. "Bring it up." They worked in silence, back at base. The crate now thawed and resting under bright lights, a grey sheen spreading across its surface like tarnished silver. When they finally pried it open, they found only one item, a thick leather-bound journal, its spine stitched by hand, pages dense with writing in faded brown ink, smelling faintly of oil, salt, and blood. A note had been tucked inside the cover. If found, read it aloud. To remember, to warn. Lieutenant Edmund Hale, HMS Erebus. Is this real? Paper shouldn't survive this long without degradation. But this looks fresh. They scanned it for mold, chemicals, known hoaxes. Nothing triggered. The paper passed every test. So one of the divers, Darren, a former Royal Marine with nerves of steel, offered to read the first few pages. He hit record on the microphone. Took a breath. Opened the journal. Scored. January 3rd, 1848. Position, approximately 70°15 and 98°23 Icebound, again. This marks the 327th day without forward motion. Captain Franklin remains confined to quarters. I suspect the infection worsens, though no one will admit it. The men grow restless. Scurvy, despair, and the creeping rot of doubt settle like frost in every crevice of this cursed vessel. We remain entombed in the ice. And yet, last night I saw something move. Not a man, not a bear, but taller. It watched from the ridge, then vanished when I looked twice. One of the privates claims he heard whispering, in English, coming from beneath the floorboards. Okay, that's enough for now. Keep going. Why would they keep writing if the ship sank? The microphone kept rolling, the pages kept turning, and what the journal revealed, across hundreds of entries, was more than history. It was confession, prophecy, and may a warning that the ice had never let go. Chapter 1. The Ice Prison. Journal entry. January 3rd, 1848. Position, 70°15 and 98°23 W. Status, icebound. Conditions stable. Morale, unstable. The sun had not risen in 6 weeks. A permanent dusk hung over the ship like a woolen shroud, muffling time, distorting sense. Shadows lingered even in lantern light. Every breath exhaled frost. HMS Erebus, moored in a prison of ice, no longer resembled a vessel. Frost had crawled up every bulkhead. Ropes had stiffened into frozen snakes. The sails, long since removed, hung in storage like shrouds over the dead. We have not moved in 327 days. The pack ice holds us firm. Captain Franklin insists this is temporary, but the men no longer believe him, nor do I. Lieutenant Edmund Hale sat in the officers' quarters, hands wrapped in oiled wool, pen trembling as he wrote. Ink froze in its well if left uncapped too long. Beside him, the stove glowed faintly, burning through the last of their imported coal. The flame offered heat, but not hope. McAllister found the rats again, 2 this time, frozen stiff beneath the galley steps. A mercy. They are cleaner now, in death, than we are in life. Down the lower decks, men murmured in their hammocks, their voices dulled by fatigue, illness, and something else. Something deeper. Private Dunley spoke in his sleep again last night, muttering in a tongue no one recognized. We thought it was delirium, but he says he doesn't recall dreaming at all. A week ago, They'd gathered in the great cabin for a morale dinner. Salt pork, stale biscuits softened in broth. A bottle of Madeira passed hand to hand like a relic. Captain Franklin, grey and withered, had offered a toast. To Queen and country, may the ice break before our resolve does. It had sounded noble, but even Hale saw the tremor in his captain's hand. The drink had masked the smell of rot beneath his collar, the black spots blooming across his neck like ink stains. The doctor says it's a scurvy rash. I believe it is something else. The real trouble, though, was not the illness, nor the cold. It was the quiet, too perfect, too still. Even the creaks of the timbers had begun to fade, as though the ice had absorbed the ship into itself. At night, it was not unusual for Hale to wake unsure if he was still aboard a vessel, or already part of the glacier. He began to hear sounds, scratching under the deck boards, always in the same place, always at 2:14 a.m. One night, he took a lantern and followed it, found nothing, but when he returned to his bunk, his journal lay open, at a page he had not written. Words I didn't remember composing. A phrase repeated 12 times. Below the ice, it waits. He burned that page, but the words returned the next morning, rewritten in his own hand. He left his cabin and descended to the lower decks. The corridor was dim, lined with rows of hammocks. Men stirred as he passed, faces gaunt, eyes glassy. They did not speak. They've begun to dream together. Same visions, same voices. One claimed to see a tall figure standing beside the stove each night. Not a man, not Inuit. Skin like bark, hollow eyes, just watching. In the day, the illusions faded. Hale would emerge above deck into the blue-white glare of eternal twilight, snowblind. The sky stretched forever in all directions, a dome of silence. Today he saw tracks leading away from the ship, human boot prints, barefoot, frostbitten toes. They disappeared over a ridge. No one was missing. No one was missing. We buried Simmons today. He was only 23. Cause of death, heart failure, but his eyes were wide, his tongue bitten, his fists clenched as if bracing against something unseen. They buried him with a Bible and a sealed tin of tobacco. It felt performative, symbolic, for the living, not the dead. He was lucky in the end. Better to go clean. Lucky, a strange word for this place, but he may be right. What troubled Hale most was not the death. It was the whisper of relief that passed among the men when the body was lowered into the snow, like one had escaped. I still feel it, something watching from the ridge. I do not look too long. My eyes sting when I try. There are no birds, no foxes, not even tracks anymore. Just that ridge. End of entry. I will keep the stove burning tonight, though it eats through what little fuel remains. I have locked the journal in my drawer. If I wake to find it open again, I may request reassignment below decks. Though I suspect there is no safer place. Christ, how many pages are there? Hundreds. The journal continues without interruption. The ink never smudges, the parchment never fades, every entry dated, every one more detailed than the last, and all of it long after HMS Erebus was presumed lost. Chapter 2. The First Departure. Journal entry, January 17, 1848. Location, ice shelf, north of Erebus. Status, search party deployed. No contact for 48 hours. They left at dawn. What passes for dawn this far north? 6 men, 1 sled, 2 dogs already half-starved. Supplies for 10 days. A desperate attempt to find the Northwest Passage survey depot, rumoured to lie 40 miles southeast, near the Boothia Peninsula. Lieutenant Braithwaite led them, his orders signed by Franklin's trembling hand. He said it was a scouting run. I fear it was an exile. The men chosen had begun to fray. Conley, whose prayers turned to screams in the night. Thomas, caught sharpening a bone into a blade. And Braithwaite himself, who hadn't spoken since December except in precise, clipped commands. They trudged out in silence, swallowed by the white horizon. No one waved, no one spoke, no one expected them to return. Back aboard Erebus, the absence was tangible. Every floorboard creaked louder, every breath fogged heavier. There was more soup in the galley now, but no one ate with appetite. McAllister spent an hour staring into the coal stove. It's too quiet now, like they took the noise with them. He wasn't wrong. That night, the sounds came again. The scratching, This time, not from below, from above. Woke at 2:14 a.m. precisely. Sound directly overhead. Not ice cracking, not wind, a deliberate dragging, measured, slow. He climbed to the top deck in full uniform, frost freezing his mustache before he cleared the hatch. The moon was a glassy disk in a pitch sky. No footprints, no disturbance, just his own boot marks. And yet, the sound persisted. When he looked to the ridgeline north of the ship, he saw it again. A figure. Still. Upright, watching. Same height. Same place. Same silence. The next morning, Corporal Hayes reported the sled dogs howling in the hold. They'd torn at their bedding. One had chewed its own paw off. The quartermaster found it whimpering beside a blood-stained coil of rope. Psychotic break. Canines get them too. Isolation, confinement. Do canines see hallucinations, Doctor? Ferris didn't answer. Second strange occurrence. 4 compasses on board now spin erratically. No magnets nearby. No electrical interference. Needle jerks east, then stops. Always east. Always toward the ridge. At noon, Hale confronted Commander Fitzjames about the patrol's absence. 48 hours and no contact. We must send a second team. Or we lose 12 instead of 6. You want to dig graves in pairs? Better that than burying men by omission. But the order stood. No rescue. Not yet. Day 49 of isolation. I wonder if the world remembers we exist. I wonder if it ever did. That evening, a new horror. While checking the stores, Quartermaster Grant found something unusual near the preserved rations. Blood on the icebox. Inside, a torn piece of uniform cloth. Human teeth marks on the salted pork. At first they blamed the rats, but there were no rats left, and the cloth was Conley's. His unit was among the scouting party, the one that left, 40 miles away. Could be from a prior rationing run. But no one had logged such a trip, and the pork was fresh, butchered within the last day. That night, the figure returned. Only this time, it was closer, near the ridge, at the foot of it. Just standing there, motionless, watching the ship. I tried to call out. My mouth opened, but no sound came. I do not know if I chose silence, or if it was chosen for me. This journal's messed up. He's unraveling. He's too detailed to be mad. This is lucid, chronological. Something happened out there. These go on for months, even after Erebus was declared lost. If you find this journal, do not seek us. Do not come looking. We are not alone here. We were never alone. Chapter 3. The Ridge. Journal entry, January 20th, 1848. Observation detail, Ridge Patrol authorized. Conditions, low wind, 37 degrees, accompanied by Lieutenant Roland Grant. The figure had appeared twice, always at a distance, always unmoving. Both sightings were near the ridge north of Erebus, a natural rise that marked the furthest line of visibility from the crow's nest. It was Grant who proposed they investigate, and Hale who approved it, against every instinct. 2 officers, 2 rifles, 1 sled, and a full flask of brandy. They departed before light could change, though light, in these months, was relative. The journey took them over packed ridges and cracked crevasses, the ship growing smaller behind them, the wind sharpening in their ears. Hale walked point, scanning the empty whiteness, his hand never far from the rifle strap slung over his shoulder. They reached the base of the ridge by midday. From this close, it looked unnatural. Not a drifted hill, not random topography, but a structure softened by time. Looks like a barrow. Earthwork, maybe. Too far north for any recorded burial sites. Inuit don't build like this. Then who does? The climb was steep, the slope more treacherous than expected. The snow beneath their boots packed thin over hidden ice sheets. Twice Hale slipped, each time catching himself with his rifle butt. Near the summit, something shifted. Not a sound, not a crack, a pressure. A moment of stillness, as if the air itself were watching. Then tracks, human-sized, barefoot, leading up the ridge and over the summit. Tracks were less than 12 hours old. Perfect toe definition. No drag, no snowdrift. No human could survive this distance barefoot. The wind fell entirely as they crested the ridge. On the far side, the landscape sloped down to a flat, white basin, no more than half a mile wide. At its center stood a cairn, not Inuit, not European. Smooth stones stacked with impossible precision. 5 tiers, forming a slight spiral. Not a ruin, not a shrine, more like a signal, The tracks led directly to it and vanished. They stop. Look, right here. No turn, no return. He circled the cairn. It's warm. What? Grant placed a glove over the top stone. Steam hissed faintly where snowflakes landed. No fire, no light. Just warmth, radiating up from the earth. They didn't touch it. They didn't photograph it. They simply stood there for several minutes, breathing in sync, unable to speak. Hale noticed something beneath the base stones, marks carved into the ice. Circles within spirals. A single triangle pointing downward, a shape he would later see in the walls of the Erebus herself. Whoever placed this, they knew we'd come, or they wanted us to. As they descended the ridge, a sound reached them, faint, distant. A bell, no direction, no echo, just one, clean ring. Did you hear? Yes. They didn't speak again until they were back aboard the ship. They returned to find the crew huddled in the mess hall. Several men had suffered fainting spells. 2 had nosebleeds. 1 claimed his bunk swayed like a cradle. None of them had seen the bell. None had rung it. I did not report the cairn to Fitzjames. I will, but not yet. I need to understand it first, before it understands me. Chapter 4. False Dawn. Journal entry. February 1st, 1848. Latitude unchanged. Sunlight returned. Temporary morale boost recorded. The sun rose today. A thin blade of gold, cutting across the frozen horizon. The men gathered on deck, blinking into the light as if it might undo the madness accumulating in the ship's dark places. No cheering, just stunned silence. Some cried. Others crossed themselves. Even McAllister, who had spoken only in grunts for weeks, whispered, "She came back for us." The return of sunlight brings warmth to the soul, if not the skin. Temperatures remain deadly, but for the first time in months, shadows no longer stretch endlessly. They have begun to shorten. For 2 days, the ice around the ship groaned louder. Cracks spiderwebbed across the surface. Fitzjames began preparing men for potential movement. Tools were brought up, spirits lifted, routines were re-established. Even Franklin, pale and nearly bedridden, managed a thin smile from his cot. She has not abandoned us yet. Perhaps we should have taken the darkness as a mercy. On the 3rd day of sunlight, a lookout spotted figures approaching from the southeast. 6, walking, 1 limping, 1 dragging something. Fitzjames ran to the railing, spyglass in hand. "Braithwaite! It's Braithwaite's party. They're back! Too soon. 40 miles there and back in 5 days? With full sled gear? In this ice?" The group approached without speaking, their coats stiff with frost, faces blackened with exposure. 2 were missing, only 4 returned. Braithwaite among them. His beard was crusted red, his eyes wrong, as if they were seeing something other than the men welcoming them back. "Get them below. Blankets, hot water. Don't let them sleep too soon." They were brought into the wardroom. Ferris examined their extremities. Severe frostbite, possible trench foot. 1 had missing fingertips. Braithwaite sat in silence. He hadn't spoken a word. When Hale tried to ask about Conley and Thomas, Braithwaite finally looked up. They chose to stay. Stay where? Below. He would say nothing more. Braithwaite's party refuses to elaborate. They claim no memory of the march back. Yet none seem disoriented. They act as if returned from a dream. Their boots are worn, but their socks were dry. Their rifles clean. No signs of recent use. No sled. No dogs. Hale began interviewing the other 3 survivors. Each had the same answers. They'd followed Braithwaite. They had found the stones. They had not needed food. They had not spoken on the return trip. When asked about the stones, 1 man began to cry. They were warm. They shouldn't have been warm. Hale returned to the deck that evening, journal in hand, to record the sunset. But there was no sunset. The sun froze at the edge of the horizon, a thin gold eye, never rising, never setting. It hovers now. An artificial daylight, no warmth, no movement, as though the sun itself has paused to watch us. That night, Braithwaite moved through the ship. Hale followed him, staying 3 paces behind. The commander walked barefoot, no frostbite, no flinching. He stopped at the hatch above the hold. He spoke, though no one was with him. She's waking." He smiled, then turned and walked calmly back to bed. The men we welcomed back are not the same. They brought something with them, or perhaps left something behind. That's not hallucination, that's pattern. Still sounds like frostbite madness to me. There's more. He charts sunrise and sunset data, cross-references magnetic field measurements. It's methodical. He wasn't losing his mind, he was recording something real. If the light does not move again, I will call it what it is. Not a sunrise, but a warning. False Dawn. Chapter 5, Hollow Below. Journal entry, February 6th, 1848. Position unchanged. Interior temperature fluctuating. Seismic disturbance recorded. The sun still hung in place, unchanged, unblinking. On the 6th day, the ice beneath the ship shifted. Not cracked, not broke, shifted. A subtle tremor like the breath of something vast and slumbering. Quartermaster Grant was the first to say it aloud. "I think we're sitting on something." It began with steam rising from the port side of the glacier. Steam, in the middle of the Arctic. Ferris tested the vapor, no sulfur, no chemical trace, just warmth. The men gathered around the fissure, some shivering from cold, others from instinct. The crack widened slowly, revealing what lay beneath. A shaft, man-sized, lined with stone, carved. These are not natural formations. This tunnel was shaped. Rope line lowered, lanterns distributed. Braithwaite volunteered to lead. I followed, against every whisper of sense. The shaft descended at a sharp angle, cold stone walls wet to the touch. The carvings started 3 meters down. Not Inuit, not European. Symbols no one could name, circles, spires, impossible geometries. One depicted a ship beneath an arch. The ship bore masts, sails, and the unmistakable twin-helmed shape of Erebus. But this carving was centuries old. 10 meters below the surface, they entered a chamber, roughly circular, walls smoothed by glacial pressure. In the center, an altar-like structure. Atop it, a mask made of bone and copper. No eye holes, no straps, just teeth. I touched it, and I heard something. A voice, not a voice, a suggestion. Braithwaite put a hand on Hale's shoulder and whispered, "She remembers you." They ascended in silence. Back on the surface, the sun still hung above the horizon. Men waited anxiously. Grant asked what they'd found. Something ancient, something buried. Not a tomb, not quite. A shrine or a doorway. That night, the interior of the ship warmed, by 4 degrees, with no additional fuel burned. The stoves were cold, the lamps unlit, yet breath no longer misted in the air. I watched the mercury rise, no mechanical failure, no sun, yet the walls weep with condensation. The ship is exhaling. Later, McAllister reported hearing voices in the companionway. He said they were calling roll. Names of the dead. They said Simmons, and they said it like he was still here. Braithwaite stood outside my door last night, staring. He didn't knock, he didn't speak. When I confronted him, he said, "The ship must feed," then walked away. What is this? Myth? Madness? There's no madness in Hale's prose, not until later. These entries are clean, ordered. He's not writing for himself, he's writing for someone else. For us. I dreamt of a second Erebus last night, sailing beneath the ice, its sails made of bone, its helm made of teeth. I think she's waiting to be remembered. Chapter 6, The Storm Journal Entry, February 9th, 1848. Barometric pressure drop recorded, visibility nil, exterior patrol suspended, internal morale low. The wind began at a 140. A thin whistle at first, barely audible above the creaks of the timbers. By 02, it was a scream. Sailcloth nailed over portholes ripped free. Lanterns swung on chains. The temperature plummeted. Hale awoke to shouting. The main hatch slammed shut, on its own or by the storm's pressure, sealing half the crew below deck. Fitzjames and Braithwaite were above. Hale and 21 others were trapped below. They would not see the upper deck again for 3 days. The blizzard hit with full force. Snow whipped through every seam of the ship. Ice formed inside the passageways. Men wrapped themselves in oilcloth and tarpaulin, huddling near the stoves. But the heat dissipated and it could be stoked. Rations froze solid. Water became powder. Even the rum turned slushy. crew exhibiting early signs of oxygen deprivation. Condensation patterns in sleeping quarters resemble circular motifs seen near the ridge cairn. By the second night, hallucinations began. Private Stokes reported hearing voices inside the bulkhead asking for help in French. No Frenchman had been aboard Erebus since Montreal. Hale chalked it up to fever, but then 2 other men heard the same phrases. Exact words, same cadence. A chorus, beneath the floorboards. Someone began knocking from within the walls, always in threes, always at 3:14 a.m. The sound came from outside the hull. It's like she's trying to come in, or like we're trying to get out. On the 3rd day, the forward hold was breached. Ice cracked through the beams like teeth. The sound split the silence with a shriek of timber. Hale and 2 men rushed to plug it, but found no source. The wood was intact. No hole, no melt, just blood on the floor, streaked in a spiral pattern. No one had been wounded. Inside the makeshift galley, arguments broke out. 2 men fought over a loaf of bread. One of them bit the other, drew blood, screamed that the loaf was singing to him. Hale intervened. Ferris sedated them both with laudanum. "We are being tested. This storm is not weather, it is intention." On the 3rd night, everything stopped. The wind, the knocking, the cold, silence. Every man awoke at once, as if roused by an invisible bell. Outside, the air was still, and when they opened the hatch, the sky was clear, stars brighter than they'd ever seen, and the snow outside the ship had been carved with shapes, geometric, spiraled, identical to those from the ridge. No footsteps, just marks, left like offerings. The ship survived, we endured, but not without change. McAllister now refuses to sleep below deck. Ferris keeps waking with frost on his lips, and no one speaks of the knock. That morning, Hale went above deck alone. Out on the distant ridge, barely visible, the figure had returned. But it no longer stood. It knelt, head bowed, arms outstretched toward Erebus, waiting. Chapter 7, Icebound. Journal entry, February 11th, 1848. Latitude unchanged, no movement, no wind. Internal temperature continues to rise. The days blur now. There is no morning, only transitions from dark to grey and back again. The sky is still stuck in that strange twilight. The sun remains where it was 6 days ago, low, unwavering, as though nailed to the edge of the world. But that is not the most disturbing thing. The most disturbing thing is the heat, the deck's sweat, condensation beads along the beams. The men have removed their heavy coats. Some now sleep shirtless in their hammocks. No one can explain it. The stoves are off. The air outside remains arctic, but inside, it feels like late spring. Fitzjames believes it's a thermal pocket, a freak of insulation and cabin heat. Ferris disagrees. This is not distribution. This is source. The warmth is coming from below, from where we found the shaft. Hale rose before the bell that morning. He walked the length of the upper deck in silence. Snow still blanketed the ship's railings, but the masts dripped like trees in thaw. The ice around the ship had darkened, glistening wet in places. Not breaking, not melting, changing. The ice no longer groans, it breathes. The ship remains trapped, but no longer by force. It feels voluntary. In the galley, tensions erupted. McAllister and a steward, named Chambers, nearly came to blows over the last tin of lemon extract. The men are afraid of scurvy, yes, but more than that, they hoard anything human. Citrus, tobacco, soap, even the smell of it brings them comfort. You think I'm letting my gums rot out while you drink tart piss for fun? Hand it over. Try me, you sun-forsaken bastard. I'll put your teeth in your boots. Hale broke it up with a raised voice and an empty pistol on the table. If we eat each other before the ice thaws, we might as well save God the trouble and jump overboard now. The room fell silent. No one laughed. Later that day, 3 of the men took the dogs and tried to leave. No orders, no plan. They just packed dried meat and a compass, said nothing, and walked out onto the plain. Grant spotted them and sounded the alarm. By the time a party reached the ridge, the men were gone. Only the dogs returned. Muzzles bloody, bellies full. The animals would not stop whining. Then they began scratching at the hold. When we locked the hatch, they lay down outside it and stared through the slats for hours. I do not know what they were waiting for. Below deck, something new. Condensation on the walls now runs in patterns. Not random, lines, angles, shapes. Ferris insists it's mineral runoff. Hale doesn't believe it. They resemble the carvings from the underground chamber. I dreamt last night that the ship had a second hull, beneath the visible one. Organic, pulsing, I was inside it. When I woke, I had a nosebleed. Ferris said it was dry air, but the air is humid now, stagnant, heavy. The warmth continues. On day 4 they found a dead rat, wet with moisture, but there hadn't been rats for weeks. It looked fresh, alive even. When Ferris opened the skull for study, he found 2 teeth missing, removed cleanly. Someone had used it. They buried the rat in a tin biscuit box and nailed it shut. That night, Hale went to Fitzjames's quarters. The commander was seated at his desk, sleeves rolled, a ledger open before him. "You've come to recommend evacuation?" "I've come to recommend sanity." "What makes you think we're still allowed any?" He's cracking. We all are. But he still wears the uniform, still gives the orders. That may be the last tether we have to the world we knew. I did not ask him what he meant by allowed. At 02 hours, the bell rang once. No one had rung it. Hale rushed above deck. The bell swung gently, moved by no wind. The ice below shimmered blue. On the ridge, the figure was there again, closer, closer than ever. Hale raised his spyglass. For the first time, he saw a face. It was my own. Or he's insane. This isn't just record keeping. He's documenting a slow possession, by the place, or by the ship, or both. Or he's insane. Then why does the handwriting stay steady all the way through? No smudges, no breaks, no deterioration. Because he's not writing as Edmund Hale anymore. I no longer feel the cold. We are not alone aboard Erebus. We never were. Tonight, the ship called my name. Chapter 8, The Sermon. Journal entry, February 15th, 1848. Internal cohesion compromised. Spiritual agitation observed among lower crew. McAllister summoned all hands to the deck this morning without approval. At 6 hours, McAllister rang the ship's bell. Not once, not twice, but 13 times. No pattern, no cadence. Just hammering it until men stirred from bunks, staggered from hammocks, and crawled above deck into the ice-thick dawn. He stood atop a supply crate, arms outstretched, eyes bloodshot. No hat, no coat, no gloves, only his uniform shirt soaked through with sweat. She came before the ice, before the maps, before the North had a name. She is the sea, the silence, the song in the timbers. She is waiting for us to return what we stole. The men murmured, not all with disbelief. Some crossed themselves. Others stood in grim stillness, eyes locked to McAllister as though awaiting orders. Even Fitzjames said nothing. Perhaps it was shock. Perhaps it was because, deep down, something in the speech resonated. He's not preaching, he's remembering. McAllister had never quoted scripture before, but this wasn't scripture. It was older. The words felt practiced. She built the ship for us. Bone for frame, copper for blood. She called us from the south with sweet winds and lies, and now we owe her our names. McAllister, stop. Get down from there. You're freezing. She keeps me warm. You think this heat is yours? This mercy? No, Doctor. It's her embrace. He threw down his gloves as if offering them to the deck itself. Hale climbed the crate, stood beside him. The men looked up, some with expectation, others with fear. This is a Royal Navy vessel, not a sanctuary, not a tomb. We sail in service to Her Majesty, not to ghost stories. Then why are you the one she speaks to at night? McAllister was seized. 2 officers brought him below decks. Ferris sedated him. Fitzjames made no comment. But that night, half the crew lit candles. Not for light, for ceremony. They placed them along the gunwale, whispering in tongues Hale had never heard. Even Braithwaite sat with them, not speaking, just listening. The line between command and congregation has collapsed. They do not fear the ship anymore. They revere her. I stand on the deck alone now. The bell rope has been cut, but I still hear it swinging. At midnight, Hale stood alone at the helm. The ship creaked beneath his boots. From the ridge, the figure raised one arm, not waving, pointing. Chapter 9. The March. Journal entry. February 18th, 1848. Latitude. Unchanged. Wind rising. Primary crew evacuation approved. The order came at 5. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't announced. Fitzjames simply nodded during mess, then cleared his throat and said, "We leave at first light, 40 miles. We make for King William Land. The depot may still be there." No one questioned him, not because they agreed, but because the silence on Erebus had become unbearable. Lanterns swayed on hooks in the dim hold. Men shuffled in boots wrapped with spare cloth. Sleds were packed, rifles distributed, rations counted and recounted. They carried hardtack, pemmican, tin-wrapped tea, and what little remained of the lemon extract, rationed now like gold. 2 teams of dogs were harnessed, already nervous. They refused to walk near the galley hatch, whined at the sound of boots on upper decks. The ship has grown quiet, but it is not at rest. She is listening. At 7:15, Hale stood at the quarterdeck. One last glance back. Erebus loomed behind them, half sunken in snow but intact, her masts frozen like spines, her windows glinting strangely in the frozen light. He swore he saw movement behind the glass of the officers' mess. But no one was left aboard, unless she keeps her own company now. The first day was easy. Eerily easy. The snow packed firm beneath the sled runners, the sky clear. Even the cold had softened slightly, though Ferris said that was wrong. February should be harder, crueler. It's helping us. No, it's following. They made 7 miles before camp, far more than expected. Spirits lifted, but uneasily. At dusk, the sun still hadn't moved. Still the same thin gold disk hovering on the horizon. No arc, no shadow shift. A sailor named Whitcomb began crying during supper. "I keep blinking and thinking it's the same day. I haven't slept. I don't think we can sleep. Sleep comes in waves, but not rest. Dreams echo. I hear footsteps in snow that isn't there. We all do." On day 2, they found footprints in the snow, not theirs. Barefoot, human-sized, leading in the direction they walked. No one's ahead of us. They're old tracks. They have to be. But the snow was fresh. No wind, no drift. What if it's us? What if we're following ourselves? No one laughed. No one laughed. I dreamt again. The ship sailed beneath the ice, but I was no longer on board. I walked above her, and she moved beneath me like a shadow. I saw myself at the helm, and I was smiling. Late that afternoon, a shout echoed from the front sled. They had found a body, not frozen, not skeletal, fresh. It was one of the 3 men who had fled days earlier, the ones who vanished with the dogs. His chest was bare, eyes open, mouth full of snow, packed deliberately inside. His hands were clasped together, holding something, a copper mask, the same mask Hale had seen on the altar below the ridge. It shouldn't be here. We buried that one. We buried it. Perhaps it came anyway. They made camp in silence. The body was burned. No one asked why. That night, wind and retard. Bitter. Wrong. It whispered in English. Not all the men heard it, but Hale did, and Braithwaite did, and McAllister collapsed to his knees weeping, saying the words were in his mother's voice. "She told me to come home, but she's been dead 15 years. The ice cracks now in a pattern. Not random, I counted between breaks, always 11 seconds apart, like a heartbeat. On day 4, a man named Hollingworth walked out of camp without boots, shirtless, grinning. When Hale and Ferris caught up to him, they asked why. She called, said the fire's ready. His skin cracked in the cold. He didn't flinch. They tied his hands and wrapped him in furs. He died that night, peacefully. On day 5, Braithwaite called for a halt. He gathered the remaining men and spoke plainly. "There's no depot. There's no landfall. We've gone in a circle. Impossible. I marked it myself. We never left." "He's right. I checked the compass. I checked the ice pattern. I even checked the stars. We've been walking in a ring." They broke camp one last time. This time, not toward land, back toward Erebus. But the ridge was gone. No sign of the shaft. No masts in the distance, just ice, flat, endless. And then, a hole opened beneath one of the sleds, like a mouth, swallowed 2 men whole. The rest stood frozen, not from cold, but from understanding. We are no longer walking towards survival, we are being gathered. Chapter 10. The Returnee's Journal Entry. February 25, 1848. Coordinates, uncertain. Snow depth irregular. Number of crew, 6, including myself. They had lost men in the night. No struggle. No sounds. Just 3 empty sleeping rolls and footprints leading outward into the endless white. No one spoke of it. There were 6 of them now. Hale, Ferris, Grant, Braithwaite, Sutton, Teague. They continued marching east toward a spot Ferris claimed felt like pressure. But by late afternoon, the wind shifted, the snow lightened, and 3 figures emerged from the ridgeline. At first they thought it hallucination, or ghosts, but the figures grew larger, closer, walking as if unharmed, straight-backed, silent. Grant fell to his knees when he recognized the lead figure. Thomas, then Conley, then Private Dent. All of them had been declared dead over a month ago. 1 had been buried, 2 were never found. And now, they walked, smiling, toward the remaining men. They looked as we remembered, uniforms intact, faces unchanged, eyes wrong. They had no frostbite, no trembling, but they blinked out of sync, all 3. They said nothing at first, just approached the fire. Sat. Dent poured himself tea, piping hot, despite no flame under the kettle. We buried Conley ourselves. Stay back, all of you. They aren't. No, this is wrong. How did you find us? We never left. Hale pressed them, asked dates, names, ship protocols. They answered correctly, but too quickly, as if rehearsed. When asked what happened after the scouting mission, Conley tilted his head. She let us go. She let us come back. We asked nicely. She missed you. Later, as they slept, Ferris examined Thomas, pretending to check his pulse. What he found made him recoil. No heartbeat, no breath, no pupil dilation. And beneath Thomas's tongue, a fragment of copper, the same metal as the masks. They're imitations, mimicry, like insects pretending to be dead leaves. Then why are they here? Because something wants to rejoin the whole. The group splintered. Grant wanted to bring the 3 with them. If there's a chance they're real, we owe them. Braithwaite abstained, saying nothing, just watched the 3 returned men as if remembering something. Ferris wanted them left behind. Now. Tied, if necessary. Hale made the decision. He wrote a message, wrapped it in canvas, and gave it to Dent. It read, "If you are you, go south. If you are not, walk the long circle. You'll find your ship again." They walked away without question, smiling. I watched their footprints vanish behind them. No drift, no wind, just erasure. I have made a mistake. I let them leave, but I believe they were meant to follow. That night, Grant woke screaming. He had dreamt of Dent, not as a man, but as a husk, filled with melted ice and copper rings, walking forever between the waking world and somewhere else. When he woke, his boots were soaked, and on his chest, drawn in frost, a triangle pointed downward. Chapter 11. The Bone Cabin. Journal entry, February 24, 1848. Location, estimated 68°47 N, uncertain. 6 men remaining. They no longer tracked the sun. It had not moved since the day they left Erebus. The horizon, that thin line of gold light, remained where it was, never dipping, never rising. A single eye locked on them through the days and nights, if either still existed. Time had become abstract. Sleep came when it could. Rations were no longer measured. No one was hungry anymore. I haven't eaten in 40 hours. I feel no pain, no weakness. I believe the cold should kill me. It doesn't. Ferris thinks it's hypothermia. I think it's her doing. They crested a low drift and saw it. At first glance, it looked like a drifted ruin. Then they saw corners, walls, symmetry. A cabin. Small, half-buried, rough timber construction. And something was wrong. The snow didn't touch it. A perfect radius of bare ice surrounded the building. No drift, no frost. The very air shimmered faintly around it. There are no settlements this far north. There were, centuries ago. No, this one never belonged to men. The cabin was built from scavenged wood, lashed with whale sinew. It had a door, iron-banded, latched with a wooden bolt. But there were no windows, no chimney, and no signs of life, until they stepped inside. Inside, it was warm, not fire warm, breathing warm. The smell was immediate. Iron, salt, and something like earth turned too late in the year. The walls were lined with bones, ribs lashed into crossbeams, vertebrae nailed like coat hooks. Human femurs supported the roof, deliberately shaped, arranged with architectural logic. These aren't Inuit, and they're not old enough. Oh God, there's names scratched in them. Look, Simmons, Conley. They've been repurposed. At the back of the room, a table, wood, blackened with age. On it sat a book, bound in what looked like oilskin, sewn shut. Beside it, a long brass-sounding bell, the kind used for locating echo chambers in ice. And around it, 6 masks. Copper. Bone. One was missing. We've found the muster. McAllister stepped forward, reached toward the bell. Hale shouted, but it was too late. The sound didn't echo. It sank into the floor, into their teeth. Ferris dropped to one knee, clutching his stomach. Grant vomited. McAllister began humming a hymn none of them had ever taught him. She's listening now. Grant tried to burn it. He doused the table with lamp oil and lit a match. The flame flared and then reversed, sucking into the wick. It hissed and died. It won't take. The wood won't burn. There's no oxygen drop. This should be impossible. We left, or tried to. When they stepped out, the door reappeared behind them, but the landscape had changed. The horizon now showed masts, not Erebus, 2 ships. They walked north, then east, then south. Each time, they returned to the cabin. The sky never changed. The wind had stopped entirely. No tracks were left in the snow. Only the cabin remained, perfectly untouched. They returned inside and sat in silence. No one spoke. They slept, if it could be called that, in corners. Eyes twitching beneath lids. Ferris whispered numbers in his sleep. Grant clutched the bell. Braithwaite didn't sleep at all. He sat upright, staring at the wall of bones. When Hale awoke, he found McAllister gone, the door wide open. Outside, only footprints leading toward the ridge, and his coat draped over a femur beam as if left in offering. We are in her now. This place, this land, the ship, the storm. It's all the same body, and we are swallowed. They found this cabin, didn't they? The salvage crew. We found a foundation, not the structure. Just square soil outlines and ice pitted in unnatural patterns. Was there anything left? We found 1 copper mask, half buried, still warm. We leave at dawn, or what passes for it. If we don't return, bury this journal, or read it. Either way, remember us not as lost, but as found. Chapter 12, The Return. Journal entry, March 1st, 1848. Position, unknown. Direction, south by instinct. Remaining, 4 men. They left the bone cabin at what felt like dawn, though the sun had not moved a degree. The light remained fixed, like a false god carved into the sky. They no longer used compasses, no longer trusted their maps. They walked toward where the air felt heavier. That was all they had now, sensation. The journey took a day, maybe 2. Time meant nothing. Grant collapsed once from fatigue. Ferris began writing symbols into the snow with a piece of charred bone. Braithwaite never looked up. He walked as though pulled on strings, and then over a low rise, they saw it, Erebus, but wrong. The masts still pierced the sky, the hull was still intact, but the ice had melted around her. A perfect basin of water shimmered black and motionless at the ship's base. No current, no reflection. The ship floated in a dead lake, no frost, no ropes. No flags, no sign of the rescue team they'd left aboard. She waited for us. Why hasn't she sunk? This isn't the Erebus. This is her grave. They lashed makeshift planks across the ice lip to reach the ship. No gangway. No welcoming lines. The boarding ladder had been pulled up. It was Braithwaite who found it, already tied, as if prepared. He climbed without hesitation. The others followed. The deck was dry. No snow, no ice, no dust. The wood creaked like skin pulled tight over a skeleton. Every board is as clean as the day she launched, but none of this is ours anymore. The first strange thing, the floor plan was wrong. Corridors bent where they hadn't before. Doors opened onto rooms that should not exist, like the carpenter's workroom. now 3 times longer and sloping downward at a measurable angle. The storage locker where Hale kept his journal was gone. In its place, a wall of smooth black wood. No grain, no nails. When he pressed his palm against it, it felt warm, alive. Ferris says the stairwells no longer obey geometry. When he descends 1 level, he returns to the same deck he began on. I watched him do it. In the galley, they found food. Fresh food, boiled beef, bread still warm. Tin mugs of tea arranged for 4. Steam rose. Grant reached for a cup. Braithwaite slapped it away. It's hers. She knows how many we are. That night, as they lay in their bunks, or what they believed were their bunks, they began hearing music. A fiddle, slow, off-key, playing a tune none of them remembered learning, but all could hum. McAllister's voice came from the walls, reciting the prayer he used to mumble over soup. Grant swore he heard his own voice asking for help from inside the stove. They did not sleep, not truly. The ship is awake, the ship is awake, not haunted, not possessed, awake. We are passengers again, but the journey is hers now. At dawn, if it was dawn, Ferris was gone. His clothes remained folded on the bunk. No trace of him on deck, no blood, no note. His boots were found beside the opening to the bilge. Inside the bilge, water, but no reflection. Only darkness that looked like a throat. We did not search for him. None of us said it aloud, but we knew the ship took him back. That night, Braithwaite finally spoke. He sat cross-legged on the deck, watching the porthole, hands folded like in church. His face calm. She's always needed a crew. Braithwaite, you've seen what She's a vessel, that's all. We boarded her. We were fed. We were sheltered. This is the fare. That evening, the deck pulsed, not moved. Pulsed. Wood rose and fell beneath their feet like breath. Nails began to twist in their sockets. The lanterns swung against gravity. The compass exploded. Not shattered, erupted, shards embedding in the cabin wall. Grant began to laugh, hysterically. He tried to drink the ink from the captain's logbook. Hale stopped him too late. He foamed at the mouth and dropped dead. Just like that. Like the ship had claimed payment. Now only 2 remain. Hale and Braithwaite. They no longer speak. The mess hall is empty. The bunks rearrange themselves overnight. The captain's portrait now shows a face Hale doesn't recognize. A woman, eyes black, wearing a naval coat that predates Franklin's by a century. She smiles. Ah, the journal ends here. No, 1 more entry. It's dated in advance. 5 days from the last one, different handwriting. Read it. I am complete. I am complete. The crew returns in pieces. The pieces remember their places. Sail with me beneath the ice. There is no cold here, only memory. And memory does not die. Chapter 13, the final entry. Journal entry, March 7th, 1848. Crew status, 1 confirmed, 1 absorbed. It is quiet now. No wind, no creak of timber, no sound from the hull or the snow beyond. Hale writes by lantern light, though the lamp no longer requires oil. It glows faintly, as if lit from within. The ship no longer pulses. She breathes steadily now, as if satisfied. Braithwaite is gone. He stepped into the bilge water this morning. Fully clothed, he did not sink, he simply disappeared. No ripple, no splash, no struggle. The water took him like it had been waiting. The walls of the captain's quarters have changed. The map table is gone. In its place, a circle of seats, made from what looks like carved whalebone. Each seat bears a name Hale recognizes. Crewman long dead. A copper mask waits in the center, perfectly polished. The nameplate beneath it reads, Hale Edmund, logkeeper. The role is formalized now. She has made her choice. I am to remember, to witness, to record. The ship sails again tonight. At dusk, or what passes for it, Hale stood at the bow. The lake that surrounded Erebus shimmered like obsidian. No stars, no reflection. But below the surface he swore he saw motion, not fish, not current. Shapes, familiar ones, men in uniform. Walking across the underside of the water as though it were a floor. Carrying lanterns, humming old naval hymns. He no longer eats, no longer sleeps. The ship sustains him now. The ink he writes with never runs out. The pen feels grown, not forged. Each word on the page comes too easily. Each line already waiting to be written. This is my final entry written as myself. I do not know if these words will reach you. I do not know if you exist. But if you hold this journal, know this, the Erebus is not wrecked. She is waiting, she is alive, and she remembers. Below deck, Hale walks the corridors, now lit with green-blue light from no visible source. He passes empty bunks, gently swaying hammocks, whispers in languages he's never learned. In the chart room, he finds a new map, not of the Arctic, of tunnels beneath the ice, winding, vast, layered like veins beneath the continent. One line is marked in gold ink, Erebus, eternal track. I do not fear her anymore. She is cold, yes, but she is constant. She sails beneath. She never stops. She remembers all who walked her decks. I will join them soon. My seat is warm. When you see her mast break the surface, do not answer the bell. The ink changes here. See the texture, it's not earthly. Did he survive? Define survive. At the bottom of the final page, a phrase is etched, not written, carved with something sharp. Bow toward the ice. She will welcome you. Chapter 14, The Passenger. Log continuation. Undated voice. Source undetermined. Calm. Language English, syntactically correct, but non-native. This is not Hale. Not anymore. What speaks now uses his mouth, his hand, his name. The fingers that hold the pen are steady, but the man is gone. Something else sails with the Erebus now, and it keeps a journal. I inhabit the vessel that remembered you, the one you named Hale. He observed, he questioned, he endured longer than most. I admired that. There is no more crew. They were folded back into the wood, into the masts and ribs of the ship. Not devoured, not buried, reabsorbed, like memory returning to a brain long frozen. Each man's voice now echoes below deck. Each pair of eyes blink from knots in the walls. Each name is filed in the hull's grain. The ship does not forget. Your kind calls this death. I do not. This is return. The body was merely a boat. The boat is now mine. Below the ice, the ship moves, not drifting, not sailing, gliding through tunnels you will never chart, veins beneath the world's frozen skin. The Erebus hums softly as she slips through miles of frozen silence. No rudder, no captain. She goes where the memories call her, sometimes toward voices, sometimes toward readers. But you have read far. You turned each page, you followed his descent. Now you know her name. In the present, as the salvage crew finishes the last page, the journal itself begins to warm. One diver finds copper dust on his palms. Another begins to hum, an old naval tune he never learned. The temperature inside the lab drops. Every screen shows the same unreadable symbol. A triangle, pointed down. Borg. I am not a ghost. I am not a god. I am a passenger, and you have opened the door. Epilogue, the voice beneath. The recording ends with a faint click. Darren, the diver who read the journal aloud, closes the leather-bound book. His breath fogs the air. Though the lab heater hums, the room feels colder than it did an hour ago. The rest of the salvage crew sits in silence. The last words still echo in their minds. Bow toward the ice. She will welcome you. The researcher in the corner, Dr. Maya Corwin, removes her gloves. Her fingers tremble as she types coordinates into the mapping software. What disturbs her isn't the journal, it's what came after. Last week, a deep sonar scan from their autonomous submersible pinged back an anomaly, a vessel-shaped silhouette beneath the Queen Maud Gulf. Unmoving, masts intact. But the readings show something impossible, warm water surrounding it. A dome of melted sea ice, 200 meters wide. Internal heat source, unknown. The structure is intact. Hull pressure is perfect. Power, residual. No decay, no decomposition, like she never died. The coordinates match the final entry's location. The eternal track. Corwin has studied naval archives for years. She knows the real Erebus sank. They recovered parts, bones, logs. But this ship beneath the ice doesn't match any sonar signature they've seen before. It pulses, once every 11 seconds, like a heartbeat. She's still down there. And you read every page? She wanted me to. What? She wanted me to read it aloud. On the far wall, a monitor flickers. The sonar feed updates. Where before there was only the silhouette of a ship, now there is motion. Something rises. On the main's heel. That's a keel. Rising 20 meters per minute. Jesus, it's surfacing. Power down the grid. Cut transmission now. She's coming. On the main screen, dark water churns beneath the ice layer. Something large presses upward. A mast breaks through. No decay, no rot. Its rigging pristine. A bell hangs from the spar. It sways once and rings. Later, the station will go dark. A rescue team will find it abandoned. No signs of struggle. No blood. Just the journal closed neatly on the desk. Open to the first page. And beside it, a copper mask. Still warm. End of Expedition Erebus by Benedict Baldwin. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.